The Beverly Hillbillies, Shorty's Hollywood fling. Come and listen to the story about a man named Jed. He was a poor mountaineer who barely kept his family fed, living a simple life in the hills where the air was thick with the scent of pine and the days moved as slowly as molasses. Then, one day, while he was out hunting for some food to put on the table, a strange thing happened. He was shooting at some game, and up from the ground come a bubble and crude
Oil, that is.
black gold. Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed was a millionaire. His kinfolk looked at him and said, "Jed, move away from there." They told him that California was the place he ought to be, a land of sunshine and opportunity. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is. Swimming pools. Movie stars. The Beverly Hillbillies. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon in Beverly Hills, casting a golden glow over the massive mansion that the Clampett family now called home. Somewhere nearby, a rooster let out a loud, piercing crow. Within the walls of the mansion, Granny was already awake, her patience wearing thinner than a mountain mist. She marched toward the source of the noise, her voice echoing through the grand hallways. She shouted at the bird, calling it Pearl, and asked if it thought it was crowing at some woman. After a moment, she softened her tone, apologizing to the old fella and admitting she did not mean to fly off the handle like that. She explained that she did not get 1 week of sleep last night and was on edge this morning, but she told the rooster to go ahead and crow because she knew it was his job. Morning arrived for the rest of the household, and Granny was ready for a confrontation. When she saw Jed, she demanded to know if he was going to do something about the situation. Jed, always the calm center of the storm, replied that he was indeed going to do something. Granny declared it was high time and hoped he realized it was all his fault. Jed, ever agreeable, admitted it was his fault, but then he had to ask a simple question. He wanted to know exactly what was his fault that he was supposed to be doing something about. Granny wasted no time in pointing the finger at Shorty Kellums. She complained that he had been in and out of the house all night, one date right after the other, carrying on like a young tomcat. Jed tried to defend his friend, suggesting they should not fault Shorty too much because he had never been out of the hills before. He explained that Shorty just came down to Hollywood to have himself a little fling. Granny was outraged by the term, asking if driving up to the front door at 4 o'clock in the morning with a young woman sitting out there smooching qualified as a little fling. She claimed to have seen it with her own 2 eyes and was shocked. Jed, puzzled, mentioned he did not think she could see the front of the house from her room. Granny snapped back that her room had nothing to do with it. She described the sight as disgusting and disgraceful, claiming she wanted to cover her eyes. When Jed asked why she did not, she confessed she would have fallen off the roof. She had been sitting up there on the roof at 4 o'clock in the morning just to see what was happening. She warned Jed not to change the subject, insisting that someone had to protect the morals of the young folks in the house. She asked if he wanted them to see Shorty's shameful carryings-on, but Jed reckoned they did not, unless they were sitting up on the roof with her. Outside, the object of Granny's frustration was saying goodbye to one of his many companions. Shorty told the young woman he was too tired to drive her home, but encouraged her to take the car because he knew she had to get to work. The woman, named Gloria, thanked him, but Shorty's memory was a bit fuzzy. He called her Jeannie, then wondered if she was Patricia or Helen. He remembered Patricia was the one he took home on the way to pick up Gloria. Gloria, feeling a bit jealous, told him she did not like sharing him with those other girls. Shorty told her not to start griping, even threatening not to put her name in the hat for that night. Gloria immediately pleaded for forgiveness, promising not one more griping. She even jokingly corrected herself, saying she meant to say grabbing instead of griping because she was mad about him. She begged to be his first date that night. Shorty consulted his busy schedule and offered her a slot from 6:30 to 8:30. Gloria complained it was so short, and Shorty wittily replied that he was short too, asking if she was looking for quality or quantity. She chose quality and thanked him, telling him not to be sensitive about his height. Shorty claimed he was not sensitive at all, saying he could have been tall, but he turned it down. As Gloria left, calling him an angel doll, Jethro appeared, noting that the beautiful morning was underway. Jethro mentioned he would have been down sooner, but he was doing his deep breathing exercise. Granny, having overheard him, remarked that she heard him panting. She asked Shorty if he had a good night's sleep, and when he said he was full of ginger, she sarcastically asked if that was the name of his latest girl. She told him he was not fooling anyone and that he should be ashamed for Tom catting around all night. She ordered him into the kitchen because Jed had a few words to say to him. Inside, Jethro excitedly told Jed that Granny had caught Shorty sneaking in and was really giving him the dickens. He thought Granny was going to whoop him and even offered to cut her a switch. Jed told Jethro to wait outside, despite the boys' protests that he never got to have any fun. Once alone with Shorty and Granny, Jed asked the naughty little rascal where he had been all night. Shorty explained that Mr. Drysdale threw a wild Hollywood party at the bank and all the girls went crazy for him, wanting to know what he was doing after the orgy. When Jed asked what an orgy was, Shorty described it as fun involving beautiful girls, music, dancing, and having grapes dropped in your mouth. Shorty continued his tale, explaining that there were about 8 girls, and since he was not as young as he used to be, he only dated 4 of them. He detailed his schedule, the first girl from 6 to 9, and the second from 9 to 12. Granny interrupted, recalling she heard him in her kitchen around 9. Shorty admitted he got a mite hungry and snuck a cookie from the jar before dancing until 12. Then he snuck another cookie and took out the 3rd girl until 4 o'clock. Finally, he took out the 4th girl, a great big rascal who liked to hug him to death, and had just returned home. Granny demanded Jed do something about it. Jed agreed, telling Shorty to come closer. Granny worried he might hit him with a skillet, but Jed said he was going to fry him some eggs because a man could not keep going like that on just cookies. Meanwhile, at the bank, Mr. Drysdale was in a much less generous mood. He found 4 of his female employees asleep at their desks and demanded swift and severe disciplinary action. He threatened to fire the whole squad. Miss Hathaway suggested he hear their side of the story. The girls explained they were out all night entertaining Mr. Kellums because he had deposited $200 million and Mr. Drysdale had told them to be nice to him. Mr. Drysdale then explained the financial facts of life. Now that the money was safely in the bank, he claimed there was no longer any need to be nice. He called them unemployed gold diggers and told them to get out. However, Miss Hathaway pointed out a discrepancy on the deposit slip. It turned out the deposit was only $1,180. The $200 million had not been deposited. Mr. Drysdale immediately changed his tune, calling the girls beautiful, alluring seductresses, and bonus babies. He gave them the day off to get their beauty sleep and offered a bonus to whoever could get Mr. Kellums to deposit his big bundle in the bank. Back at the mansion, Shorty was sneaking his remaining money out of Granny's root cellar. He told Jethro it was all he had left after putting the rest in the bank. These were big dollar bills he had hidden for 40 years. He did not want to spend them, but with 6 dates lined up for the night, he might need to borrow a couple. Jethro asked why he didn't just draw money from the bank, but Shorty was afraid the girls there would pounce on him like chickens on a grasshopper. He claimed his secret was that some people have it and some do not, and he simply had too much of it. The phone rang, and it was Gloria again. She wanted to bring his car back and take him to Las Vegas, mentioning shows, swimming pools, and a wedding chapel. Shorty told her they would talk later. Nearby, other girls from the bank were competing for his attention. Deborah was frustrated because she had the size, looks, and youth, yet Shorty had all the girls. Shorty, feeling bushed, asked the girls to entertain Jethro while he took a nap. Jethro was eager, but the girls told him to get lost or offered to read him comics later. Mr. Drysdale arrived and tried to greet Granny, but she called him Milburn Orgy and blamed him for leading Shorty down a primrose path with his wild parties. Mr. Drysdale defended the girls as sweet young doves, but Granny pointed out that a young dove was currently heading south with an old rooster. When Mr. Drysdale realized they were taking Shorty to Las Vegas, he panicked. He tried to convince Shorty not to go, warning him about gambling losses. Shorty admitted he liked gambling and women. To keep the money in his bank, Mr. Drysdale promised to bring Las Vegas to the Clampett swimming pool, recreating the atmosphere right there. Mr. Drysdale's plan was a calculated risk to land the $200 million. He told Miss Hathaway not to worry about prison because he had great attorneys. Later, Granny was seen with a wheelbarrow full of nickels. She complained to Jed about the machines down by the cement pond that cheated her. She had expected fruit like cherries and oranges, but only got nickels. Jethro wanted to join the fun at the pool, but Granny stopped him, saying it was no place for a boy because of the girls in skimpy outfits. She gave him the chore of counting her nickels and going to the market to buy the fruit she felt she was owed. Jethro lamented that he never got to have any fun despite the place being full of girls. Granny urged Jed to do something about Shorty, fearing he was going local and might collapse. Jed hoped Shorty would slow down soon. Mr. Drysdale continued to hover over Shorty at the dice table. When Shorty realized he left his money in the house, Mr. Drysdale offered him $20, calling it a small amount between a banker and his biggest depositor. Shorty made a joke about his height, and the girls cheered him on. Jethro returned from the market with the fruit. He tried to join the girls by the pool again, boasting about his swimming and diving skills, but they ignored him. Shorty, feeling the pace, told Jed he needed to taper off. Jed offered to help by taking some of the girls off his hands in about 6 months. Mr. Drysdale, still focused on the big money, asked Jethro where Shorty kept his millions. Jethro revealed the secret. The big money was in the icebox in a mason jar. Mr. Drysdale rushed to find the jar, but he was shocked to find it only contained $200. He realized that to Shorty, $200 was big money compared to the small bills. The bank girls, hearing the news that the party was over and there were no millions, immediately prepared to leave. Shorty tried to tell them his one overpowering weakness was checkers, but they were already gone. In the quiet that followed, Shorty turned to Jed and gave him a piece of advice. He told Jed that if he ever decided to marry a city woman, he should remember that they might not mind drinking, gambling, or even cheating. However, he warned Jed never to admit to playing checkers. Shorty called himself an angel, and with that, the wild Hollywood fling of the hills came to a humorous and peaceful end.